Right. Peace, everybody. Sorry for the delays on my end. Just trying to get some technology situated and squared away. Um, yeah, so give us kind of like 2 minutes whenever we can get started. Make sure that everybody can hear me. If you can't hear me, put a one. If you can hear me, put a one in the chat. Just to make sure that y'all can hear me and whatnot. Peace, peace. Uh, Peace, Sister T. How you doing? All right, we got ones in the chat. All right, all right. Cool. Sister Hey, Peace is in the building. Peace, peace. Give me 1 minute, and I'm about to share my screen. So let me share my screen. Y'all can see my screen. Let me know if y'all can see the screen. If it's too small, I can adjust as much as possible. Y'all just let me know if it's too small. So, stretch it out. Okay. Cool. Y'all can see the screen, right? Just fine. Just making sure. Scroll down. Cool. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and get started for everybody, just to make sure. Cool. So these are the topics that we're going to be covering today. Um, Actually, I'm gonna just yeah. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna be talking about the elections, ARNA elections 2022, as well as preparing for your family and what's coming, and as well as an investment opportunity that I think is worth looking into, and then the science of why you are so fearful, but also just some things of how to actually address it, and as well as we're going to go over some protocols as well. So this is very important. But as you know, how we always we start off with the preamble. So I'm going to hit the preamble really quickly. We, the people of the Aboriginal Republic of North America, asserting our natural Aboriginal rights as the oldest recorded Aboriginal Indigenous peoples of the Americas, consisting of an Aboriginal Union of Indigenous peoples living in accord with natural law, the law of our ancestors, do hereby recognize all nationals of the Aboriginal Republic of North America as a unified community, establish a divine right to self-rule, common defense of our nation, a complete unified world for progress and prosperity by and for our people, establishing justice by way of natural law and equality, and complete autonomy as a nation. Cool. Thank you for dealing with that. So, as you know, you have to know your preamble as nationals and as well as the 12 general orders. Hold on, give me a second. Let me see if I can do this real quickly. Yeah, okay. That's very important. So keep that in mind. And just making sure that you paid your dues. I know I keep reminding everybody, but there's a specific reason why I, had, continuously kept pushing this because this is something that's very important, but as well as that this is one of some of the determining factors when participating in the election and whatnot, right? So hopefully you're caught up to dues. And if you're not sure, I'll tell you what to do on the next step. So obviously this is the importance of paying dues and why it's important. I know y'all like, man, Roger, why you always do you change that slide? No, I do not. I leave the slide the same. So for a specific reason. So anyway, I won't spend too much time. So ARNA elections 2022. You must be in national good standing. You have to be sure to reach out to the Drill Society if you're not sure of your current status, right? This is the email address, just in case you're not sure. And also, just don't count yourself out. You may think that you don't have any type of reference point or experience in these ministerial positions, but definitely, if you have the heart, the will, and the desire to learn, definitely throw your hat in. Never count yourself out. That goes in the lines of fear of what we were talking about earlier, what we're going to be talking about later on, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So these are the positions. This might be a little too small. So it's just ministerial age, new age technology and science, cosmology, international affairs and communications, arts and culture, family community action, births and deaths, education, civics and commerce. Very important stuff. So this is the stuff that these are the ministries that you can apply for. And again, we should really participate. As a reminder. Okay. So we want to talk about preparing your family, right? This is very important. As you probably noticed, you got the Xi and Putin. They plotting to do the New World Order. They are fed up with the United States. We have a lot of enemies, as you may be aware of, and so they're already plotting together. But already there's people and groups of people who already been talking about it from like the World Economic Forum, like talking about the Great Reset. They've already been plotting and talking about this stuff on why they are doing what they're doing to reset everything and to restart over. So that's why you need to make sure that you're putting the necessary steps in place to be prepared for what's to come. So that way you don't get blindsided, right? And that goes into addressing fears that might be just lingering in your mind, right? But that's just something to put on your mind. And it's funny that it's she, but anyway. New York, if you're still in these cold states, climates, I don't know why at this point, you probably should start reconsidering coming down south because as you see, New York declares a state of emergency over polio. Polio! Come on. Polio. In water. Waste water. Right? So what are they saying? You should get the booster. Now these people are playing games, right? So get out of these crazy areas, move down south. We'll talk about some other things that you can do in general, right? But the big thing that, if nothing's clear, is that clean water is becoming more and more scarce. So what does that mean? You need to start putting water aside as emergency water reserves because they said by 2025 it's going to be a scarce commodity. So that's why you need to make sure you know where your nearest river is. Stack up on a lot of waters that are not in. If you want to take them out of the plastic bottle and put them in a glass bottle or a container, that'll be good. So that way the plastic doesn't necessarily bleed over into the water itself. So that's just something that you want to actually keep in your mind because they're talking about it's going to get worse. So instead of getting blindsided, instead of getting caught whenever it happens and you get all scared and fearful, you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't have any water. What do I do? Well, you can start now, so that way you're not blindsided, right? And we have nationals that actually distribute spring water, right, in our nation right now, today, that you can go and get you some. So that way, you're plugged in, you have some water, you can set it aside. Again, alkalinebodies.org is where you can go and start looking at purchasing waters for you and your family. That's very important. So these are one of the easiest ways to start preparing for yourself and your family is Nationals here. So if you wanted to reach out to Energy or Nev, they'll be happy to assist you and just give you the rundown, tell you what's actually in that water. So just something to be aware of. All right, investment opportunities. Y'all know I like technology. So there's a company called IonQ Inc. Incorporated. They are in quantum computing. Quantum computing, like I told y'all in previous videos, is going to be big. It's one of the sectors that we want to, put some of our scientists in that sector to go to work too, because they've already started building these quantum computers for a long time. They used to be huge, like facilities. Now they've got it to a point where it's like really small, efficient, and it's long lasting, right? So the reason why I'm even talking about this company is because they have companies like Airbus, which is a manufacturer in DFW. They also have a location in, I think Louisiana and a few other places. They're a France company in general, but they already have a partnership and agreement to collaborate on the aircraft loading project for quantum computing. So what does that mean? That means there's a lot of dollars being poured into this company already. And so that's just something to just kind of keep in mind. And their technology is pretty small, compact, and efficient. So their price point is like $559. Again, I know everybody's kind of like, oh, but the stock market, But in general, like to me, like that's why I look at these things because there's going to be maybe a better time to purchase this. Maybe not now, maybe cheaper, maybe a month or so later, and it's like $2, and that might be a good time to buy it. But in general, the reason why I'm even bringing it up is because quantum computing is big. And it's one of those factors that we need to look into. So IBM's already doing something like this. Google is already doing something like this. But look at the physical dimensions of like big difference of what they've done versus what IonQ can do. The singular package that's small, 2 inches versus 20 feet versus 6 feet. Big difference. So that's why I'm even mentioning it. It's like it's worth just, even if you don't do nothing with it, that's cool too. But I know I'm going to do something. So whatever y'all do is whatever y'all do. Right. So yeah, so I already talked about a lot of this stuff. So if you don't know what quantum computing is, maybe something you want to look into. Okay. I'm gonna get everybody grounded again. Things will always change. Things are always constantly changing, but you have to be flexible in how you move, right? Don't be stuck in one way. Oh, we've always done it this way. Well, okay, well, we may have to change and evolve and make some things different. And just get rid of the welfare mentality, right? Get that out of your brain, and then start focusing on get your head in the game. Arna is not. You maybe think comments like, "Why is Arna not winning like the U.S.?" The U.S. was not built over, 6 months or 6 years. Like it took time, and it took people working together as a team. So that's the big thing. Let's work as a team, but let's breathe. Right? We're gonna have some issues. We're gonna have some things, but we just work through them. So y'all know this is my favorite thing to talk about, Aboriginal shape, but we're gonna be focusing specifically on mental. So mentally, everything is mental. Everything begins with a thought. Get and stay prepared so that you don't have to worry about getting caught off guard like we talked about earlier. The mind is where things die or give birth to, right? And when your mind breaks, so does the rest of your systems in your body, right? So get control of your mind so that it doesn't get control of you. These are some things that you just keep in your mind, right? So your mind, your brain, made of carbon, solid, and it cannot be dissolved in water, obviously. But with oxygen, it reacts like a combustion factor. Like that's why you see when you learn new things, synapses are firing off in your brain, and then things are making new connections in your brain. So what does all that mean? It means you need to make sure that on a simplistic level, you need to be breathing. Hard body, you need to be breathing. Deep breaths, not shallow breaths. Because when you start doing the shallow breath, you start panicking. That's when your system's like, oh shit, what's happening? Right? So that's what I mean by like just, but not only that, you just want to make sure that you don't want to introduce any viruses or pathogens or parasites in your system because they'll break the covalent bonds in your system and things start breaking down. Right? So yeah, we already know this going to. That's cool. So the amygdala. So this is the flight or fight in the brain, right? So we can check this with the bioscan. So if you need bioscan, you're in the area, we can get it done today. Those who are in the Hawab area, we'll get you hooked up, right? So, but we can check to see if that's off. That chemical balance is off. And we can tell you how to get it right back on track. That means you need to get it out of the state of survival mode and then to a place of like stability, right? So you can't stay there forever, always constantly fighting, surviving. Man, I need to get. No. Get to a place of stability, right? So fear. Let's talk about this fear because fear be popping up in everybody's space. Fear is something that interrupts the 12 different systems in your body, specifically the brain for first polarity, right? Which regulates the emotions, the nonverbal cues, the ability to reflect, act ethically. When fear is introduced into the brain and then the rest of the system, everything else goes out the window because you're scared shitless of what's about to occur or what may occur or what you probably thought of in the brain, right? And so we'll get into the specifics of what it actually disrupts specifically. So fear can actually break down these systems: your immune system, your cardiovascular, gastrointestinal, which can cause ulcers, your, and just irritable bowel movement syndrome and decreased fertility. So that means it's hitting digestive, it's hitting your reproductive, it's hitting your nervous and circulatory, and it's also hitting in your immune. So when you have fear in your mind, it is disruptive of these systems. Now, keep in mind that this is just some of the systems. The rest of your systems will obviously start breaking down when these are having issues. Damn, if you have heart problems or blood issues, I don't expect anything else to work, right? So, oh, peace, peace, peace. I see some people coming through. Peace, y'all. Be sure to like the video. Share this video with somebody who needs to, understand that fear is something that you need to get addressed. Okay. So let's talk about fear. These are some of the things that cause some mental issues in the first polarity, the brain. Panic disorder, things that may have happened in the past that stress you out and cause you to panic when it like shows itself up on your doorstep. You're like, damn, I don't know why I'm so panicky. Probably because you haven't addressed whatever happened in your past, right? Social anxiety. I don't even know why people are so anxious. Yo, it's just people. Like people treat like people are like just, damn, they're the end all be all. Like you should not be anxious over anybody. Like if there's a problem you have with somebody, you should be able to tell them honestly, I have a problem with you. Let's talk about it. And you should not get anxious about being around people. Oh, somebody's gonna judge me for saying this. No, don't worry about it. People may say, like, Coach, why you be laughing all the time? Because sometimes I find this funny. So, anyways, okay. Phobias. So some people who have phobias. I talked to somebody who was a vet, got shot at, wouldn't touch a spider, fearful of spiders. I'm like, yo, you've been shot at, but a spider scares you? So that these are things that again, these are some mental conditions. Right? And then post-traumatic stress. So that means again something that has happened, like some folks from the vet or people who have issues with parents or relationship issues. Those things can flare up and then it turn into remixes. They're like, oh damn, I'm reliving what has happened before, but it's now just a different remix. So, yeah, you're right, Sister T. Communication is vital. All right, I know this is like so small, y'all may not be able to see it, but I'm gonna get to the gist of it, right? So, this is what they said. They said 1 in 8 people have mental illness, and it's growing. Depression, schizophrenia. But something that I really want to point out to you is like the studies of their genetic research says that it's overwhelmingly from white people. Let that sink in. And it says less than 2% of genetic studies include African descent, blah, blah, blah. Not buying it, but because they've always studied us. But understand that when it comes to your health and you go into these facilities and things of that nature, let this be clear that they're comparing your genetics to their genetics. So be very mindful if you step foot in these facilities. And they have a large sample sizes from ancestors with better equipment and stuff like that, right? So that's one thing I wanted to mention. But also want to mention the Human Genome Project. That has been floating around since 2003, and they've completed that. That's what they said. But now it's moving on to DNA, and that's why it's important to get into the Aboriginal Medical Association and things of that nature, right? Because they're making groundbreaking things in the DNA realm, right? In genetics. So let's get even more deeper. Blackstone buys Ancestry.com. So those who are doing like 23andMe, Ancestry.com, and you're giving out your DNA, they're selling it to the highest bidder. Don't do that. Work with our genealogy department. AMA, you should be able to study your own DNA. You should not be selling. You should not be giving it willingly because they're taking it, flipping it, cloning it, doing all types of weird stuff, right? So just keep that in mind. I know y'all like that. Deep in. No, just one last couple things. Human Genome Project. Tell y'all, go look into it. And here's the whole chart of how they've done the genetic studies. They use rats, how to die to piece. It's crazy. So let's talk about this fear. There is 4 things that really is the basis of fear. Objects or situations, like I was telling you with the vet. Future events. This is where some folks live at. They're like, damn, if that happens, then this could happen. And it's like, no. You living in fear, in something that may or may not happen. And then imagine events. Folks be living here too. Like they be imagining stuff in their mind and it hasn't even occurred. They thought of it and they believed it. And so now it's like, oh yeah. So they just fear it for it. They're like, yeah, that person did this. And I'm like, did they do that? Or did you make that up? So yeah, it's just, it's just fear. So, but I get it. Fear is what's supposed to keep you safe, right? But we need to address it. So how do we go about addressing it? So I'm gonna give you some real practical stuff to do. Okay. Using your senses, all of them, right? From smell, sight, touch, taste, hearing, and also your dreams, right? But when you're doing this, you want to ask yourself, how does this taste or how does this feel? What does it look like? And ask yourself questions. Don't let these things excite you. Remember, because we want to have our emotions stable. So we want to make sure that we're like, okay, you're neutral. But you just want to ask these questions, right? This is how you're actually getting familiar and comfortable with yourself, right? Reading books, y'all, that demystify a lot of information. Y'all have a lot of books already that keep you busy, from the Lost Heritage, the Protocol Manual, the Constitution, the genetics book, you even got Aboriginal University. These things are going to help you filter out the junk and keep you focused, right? Learning new skills that challenge your brain, that get you to a point where you're like, okay, I'm making new connections, right? I've learned something. And then you can take that skill and then make money from it or be a service to somebody because you're sharing your knowledge or skill that you just learned, right? And then, these are just some of the things I really talked about before. Reflection. This is something that is like we don't spend enough time doing. It's just challenging unhelpful thoughts that are holding you back. You're like, damn, why do I even have that thought? Like, damn, you so stupid, Kojo. Like, well, where did that thought come from? That thought comes from something. We got to go into the root. We got to go to the source of why it even popped up and ask ourselves, is it really helpful? And then, when you experience negative thoughts, just identify the errors in your ways of thinking. So that way you're like, okay, I thought this way because this happened, or this happened to me, so I'm thinking this way, or I told myself this. And then, as you're doing this, you want to scan your body, your entire body, assessing your emotions, because maybe certain thoughts trigger certain things, and you don't want that, right? So the whole point is to have your emotions in check, and then instead of using your finger, use your thumb. Always point back to, okay, I'm feeling this way because I have allowed myself to get to the state. So use the thumb method instead of the. It was because of this person. We don't want to be pointing. We don't want to be pointing at each other or pointing at somebody else and not taking responsibility. That's the whole idea. Just use the thumb method. Point back to yourself, because it's too easy to just point at somebody else when it's your life, right? So I know y'all getting tired of hearing deep breaths. Deep breaths. And then get your stuff into a state of relaxation. Why is that even there? Because, big difference between deep breathing versus alcohol. Listen, you numb in your frontal lobes when you drink alcohol, and that's not really addressing the problem. You're running away from it. Or, whatever it is you do to get yourself in a state of relaxation. It's cool, but like you want to make sure that you can do it yourself, right? So that way you're not depending on other extra forces as a crutch to get you to relax. So just keep that in mind and get yourself into the zone. Working on your mission. Writing things down. Write down your feelings in a thought, in a journal. That way, it's like off of your brain and onto the paper, or it can be phone or digital or hard copy. It doesn't matter. The idea is that you want to take it from here to paper or to phone, and then you're like, okay, I'm looking at these thoughts, and I'm like, is this what I felt today? Damn, why did I feel this way? And then you go back, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to figure out why, and then you're like, that was because my mom did this to me. The idea is that you just want to assess the situation so that you're not having these things just built up in your brain, causing extra stress and worry on your brain. Like we want to get to the point where we're not even worried about things that have happened in the past. We want to be able to move forward. So that way our genetic structure is not affected, in the next group of people right behind you, right? Write down reminders that you got this, or things that you actually achieved. Like that's important. Like sometimes we be forgetting, like, oh damn, I really did do that. Damn, I'm proud of me, right? And you pat yourself and you write that down, right? It's just good reminders. It's just good habits. That's all we're doing is just good habits. And then affirmations, whatever makes sense to you. That's very important. Peace, God. I see you coming through. Cool. Mental exercises with the mirror technique. People have heard me say the mirror technique. Sometimes I do like this, and it's like, well, that's basically I'm getting you to look at you, right? Look yourself in the mirror, and do you like what you see? Are you really like comfortable with what you see? If there's something that you don't like that you see, then you need to ask yourself, okay, why is that? There's nothing else to point. You can point at everything else in the mirror, but it still points at you, right? So that just instead of doing that, just use the thumb method. Okay. So talk to yourself and give yourself reality check. When you're talking to yourself intelligently and you're going through the process of, okay, why am I thinking this way? Or what am I seeing in myself that I don't like? Like why is that even there? And you can address it, right? So it's just all about, can you find your soul when you look in the mirror? Not, yeah, I'm just seeing this, huge vessel in the mirror. I don't even know who that is, but I'm looking at it, right? You need to be able to find you, and that's the very essence of this whole exercise, right? So if you see Kojo do this, to you, like, understand that I'm just telling you to look yourself in the mirror, right? So the big thing is accountability. We talked about that before, and using the thumb instead of the finger. And then the other thing is, are you afraid of judgment? Because sometimes, that's the thing that we run away from the most. That's what a lot of people are fearful from, is judgment. Why? Why are you afraid of judgment? Because maybe it hurts. Maybe it's, demeaning, or maybe it's like, damn, like, people are just mean in general with their hurtful words. Understand that is just short term. Like if you're doing what it is that you're supposed to be doing, you're focused on getting you and your family together, and your whole collective together. And people may cast judgment. That's normal, right? But that's short term. Like if you stay focused and doing what you're supposed to be doing, it doesn't matter. It'll pass. Truth will always find its way to the light. Period. Right? So, who's that? The sharing technique, y'all. Let's share and cooperate with people who are on the same code as you. Um, that's important because you just don't want to be sharing with people who are just going to take, and then kick you down, and then leave you stranded, right? You want to share with people who are on the same code with you, same direction. That's important. So that way, when you're sharing with people who are on the same code as you, you can build up something that much more quicker. That's meaningful and lasting. Um, Nothing ever got done from somebody who was holding on to all the secrets of the world. Not even white people did that. They would share information, and that's how they got to where they got, and still continue to get to where they're going because they're always constantly sharing. So we just got to do the same thing, and not be stingy. Right? Avoid competition at all costs. It only introduces cortisol levels whenever you're constantly worried about, oh damn, I gotta be better than somebody, or I gotta compete with somebody. No, you ain't gotta compete with nobody. There's nobody to compete with. So, all right. Standing up for yourself and what is right. A lot of people sometimes fall short in this area. They're like, damn, like they did me dirty. I should hold them. No, what? Never mind. Or this company got me fired because they said that I did this, but I didn't do that. I guess I just gotta let it go and go somewhere else. No, 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 no. You want to make sure you speak your voice and you hold them accountable. That's the idea. Don't let these people get away with doing stuff to you. Like if somebody pulls you over and they've done it wrongfully and illegally, don't just like, I just paid the ticket and move on. Don't do that. Hold them accountable. Period. That's all you gotta do. So we've been like kind of like, I think even Ali had posted something today regarding this white man who basically is a big sex trafficker, drug lord, selling women, black people's organs, all that stuff. We gotta hold this dude responsible. But we gotta do it where it makes sense, right? People who are in a protected nation under a different jurisdiction, all these things like you want to start there, right? Like the hot idea is just don't let people get away with it. So you gotta ask yourself, what are you going to be? What's your contribution to the world, right? What's your contribution that you're gonna leave on people? That's important to ask this question, right? And are you being authentic with yourself? This is what causes a lot of fear and anxiety in a lot of people is because they're not really being authentic and true to themselves. How do you get there? Well, hopefully you're reading the book of you, meaning cosmology, that you understand yourself, knowing your cards, knowing who you are, knowing how you think, knowing how you love, knowing how you fight, how you transform. All these different things are so important. I promise you. And are you defining and planning your purpose? And then just lastly, are you executing? Very important. But going back to like, what is going to be your contribution? That makes a huge difference. I promise you. So yeah, I mean, and it's good that we have systems in place that Ali has put together for us to actually work with and utilize. So I mean, and of course, that's what we have to use. So um, the big thing with fears is just we need to make sure that we're addressing old traumas because they will creep up in different circumstances, different events, different people, different things. And if we don't address it, we're just going to be running away. And that's a form of fear. Like you're running away from something that has happened already, but because you're running away from it, it'll pop up, because you're constantly thinking about it. And what gets thought about gets birthed to life, right? So solving past relationship issues. There's people who came to me saying, man, should I let go of this person? I'm like, yo, I mean, they were disrespectful, right? Let them go, right? Or if they treat you like you're not even a real person, like why deal with it? Why tolerate disrespect? That goes back into standing up for yourself and not letting people get away with money, right? That means mothers, fathers, relationships, all that stuff. Don't let people disrespect you. And then just building good habits, the software. So what are we doing every day? Are we drinking pop soda or let's say pop soda? Are we eating heavy foods in the morning? And it could be carbon based, right? It could be like bison, yeah. Damn, that's heavy to be in the morning. Right? I'm serious. Like what are we doing? Like, started off light with the body, like, okay, fruit, that's cool. It's light or nothing. Maybe just water. That's cool too, right? But the idea is just building habits. And then are we asking ourselves, how do I want to go about my day? How do I want to go about my life? How do I want to go about executing these goals? How do I want to address this issue, this trauma? How do I get to feeling better about me? Like these are real meaningful questions that you want to ask yourself every day and get to them. And then use your time wisely. A lot of people squander their time. People like, no, Kojo, how do you have time to do X, Y? It's because I'm not squandering my time. People are like, yeah, I got all day, they kick back. 5 hours will go by and they be like, damn, what happened? I'm like, yo, you squandered it. I've watched people squander time. I'm like, damn, Kojo, you always working. Unfortunately, yes. And that can be looked as a dysfunction. So I have to be mindful of that. Because the Queen of Hearts and Ten of Spades, the dysfunction is overworking. See, that's being honest with myself. So I have to be sure I have to be balanced with that. I can't be like, okay, I gotta do everything. No. Let me work together and distribute the work. So that's not all. I don't feel like it's all on me. That's me creating an image in my mind that's not even real. That goes back into the fear. See, even Kojo has to remind himself the reality. That's just reality, right? That's the energies, right? And then just make sure you're filling yourself with good nutrition, like proper nutrition. Come through. If you're here, get a bioscan. We'll hook you up. Nationals, in a while. Gotta make that disclosure. And we'll find out where you're at. Like, that's what we're here for, right? So, and then just make sure you're doing the rites of passage. If you're in a while, we're gonna kick it off again where we can, get that habit where, we can hold each other accountable if you're not doing it by yourself. But you should be able to be doing it by yourself in general, right? And then just doing it faster. So that way you can start repairing damage things and whatnot. So let me see. Nationality is your resource, right? The formation of an autonomous entity, right? Like, understand that nationality is your resource. So those who are not using your nationality as a resource, that is a problem, because it's like that's one of the pillars you have to like get yourself to a place of stability. Remember, if you get to yourself where you're a place of stability, it eliminates fear, because you're out of survival mode. We want to be out of survival mode. Very, very important. And we want to get our economics right. We want to get our love of life right. We want to get our health right. We want to get our mind right. We want to get all these things right. So, yeah. Anyway, I know I talked about this last time. Starting local jurisdictions. Some of these questions have popped up. Yeah, damn. Yo, how do you start local jurisdictions if I if there's nothing near me? And that's a fear that has stopped people from even doing anything. Well, you can just start your own. Start one of your own. Like, obviously, you want to, become jurists and things of that nature. But in general, you start your own. Start having classes. Start getting together with people who are of the sound mind and everything, and then get busy. But in general, you can find all this stuff in the protocol manual. That's the idea, is that if there's probably a question you have, it's probably been a video done in the protocol manual where somebody knows. But most likely, it's documented somewhere. And that's one to get in the habit of like, okay, let me not just, without exhausting my mind to let me check videos, let me check the protocol manual, let me check the website. All right. So, banking procedures. I know we talked about this last time. I'm not going to go through it. Some of y'all look crazy whenever I'm like, yo, there's banking procedures? Yes. Just go on your protocol manual. If you haven't opened up your bank account, like I said last time, please do so. Stop using your old bank account. That's not protected, right? So, let's talk about rules of interaction with police procedures. This is very important stuff. When you're interfacing with the police officer, you get pulled over. That's where a lot of fear happens. Let me go back. I just want to talk about the banking procedures. One last thing. When you go to these banks, some of y'all, I know y'all be sweating. I'll be so fearful. You're like, damn, what do I do? What do I do? You forget all the things that you could go to a video, you could go to a protocol manual. That goes out the window when somebody says, what type of business is this? You go, I'm like, you don't know what it is? You wrote it down. It's on the document. You have. So that's what that fear comes from, is that you really don't actually understand nor believe in what it is that you have it. And don't even believe, you're not convinced that this actually is legit. And that's a problem, because you're like, this ain't real. And we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, let's talk about this police. Y'all driving, cruising down the street, and then whoop whoop. You're like, oh damn, let me straighten up. Y'all get to shaking. Yeah, like, and then you roll down the window, license and registration. You're like, you try to grab your life. You don't even know where your insurance is. That's how much fear that y'all be just succumb. And no, but that's a real issue. How did we get there? Because I'm gonna tell you how we got there. We got there because we've allowed authoritative figures put us into a state of fear, because we think that they have more power, and we're giving them all of our power to do so. So we get all fearful, and it's not that complicated. Roll down the window. How you doing, officer? How you doing today? Give them a smile if you want to. Don't just be calm. License, registration, you give it to them. They're like, this ain't a real tribal ID. You like, wait, an affidavit. Here's a document. All that stuff. Like, you hand that to them, right? And they still like, you know what? You're out of the car. You doing X, Y, and Z, right? Remember? State this line right here, that you are indigenous American. You're part of a tribal government, and you provided your government license and ID. It's part of the program. And then make sure you call somebody as a witness. They're like, yo, this is happening right now. I just need you to be here as a witness, as you're recording, because We don't want stuff to go off, right? We don't want stuff to go down, and we don't want you to feel like you're alone, right? That's important. So there's a lot. There's a whole list of rules. Go check them out in the protocol manual. As a reminder, if you forget, don't be whipping out your honor member ID as a form of driver's license. That is not it. There's actual tribal driver's license that we issue. You can use that honor member ID whenever you're walking about. That's fine to identify yourself. If somebody's like, "Yo, who are you?" and the police officer is like giving you a hard time, there, here I am. But don't do it while you're moving a moving vehicle, right? And then here's an international notice to officers that is also in the protocol manual as well. So you need to make sure you have all your credentials lined up and matching. Don't have one thing here, one thing over there, this, that, old name here, maybe two names in the past. That doesn't make sense. They're like, who is it? You're doing some fraud here. Right? And they're like, get out the car. Right. So make sure you have all this stuff lined up. Make sure you have your tribal driver's license if you haven't applied for one. And then make sure your insurance lines up too. That's important. Make sure you have insurance. I've had people come to me and say they don't have insurance and they got pulled over. I'm like, okay. That's a problem. Or like a registration, like no tag. No. So yeah, just put a tag to your car. And just don't forget to breathe. You're not doing anything wrong. I promise you. If you're following procedures, you're not doing anything wrong. I promise you. And then let's talk about nationality docs. Some people get into a state of fear. We're like, yo, I don't know what to do. They denied me for notarizing my document. Like, it don't work. Just go somewhere else. Like these people, they play these type of games. They try to get you into your head where you're like, oh no, that's not real. You just go somewhere else. That's it. You just go somewhere else. And then, I'll give you an example. Like there was a national who was trying to get their nationality documents notarized. They're like, we're not notarizing this. This ain't real. She came back boo-hooing that, this is not real. And I'm like, no, it's okay. Whatever they were doing, we're gonna deal with them later. Let's first get you through this process because they were very new. We just go somewhere else that's gonna notarize it without a problem. Because it's notarizing documents. What are you doing discriminating? Right? That's a whole nother discussion. But just as a reminder, you have instruction documents to look at. If you forget, what am I supposed to do with this document? And there's several videos on what to do with each of these documents that you can reference. Period. So. Right. Plus, you have a jurist, right? Folks may reject it. Like I told you, go somewhere else. It's not that big of a deal. So why do people carry this doubt or uncertainty with just ARNA and just some of the processes? Well, it's because maybe there's doubt in your mind. Basically, you can call it. And basically, there's spyware or viruses in your program that are making these imprints that like, man, I dealt with this organization in the past before, and they led me down this wrong road. Remember, you're creating in a past event and making it something that's current, a fear. Like, oh no, I don't want to. That's why we have protocols and procedures. Maybe sometimes you're not comfortable because it's new. You're like, I've never done this before. I don't know. That's okay. That's what you get. You talk to a jurist or somebody who has been through that and walk you through. And then just, are you comfortable with the truth? And do you believe in you? Mainly is, do you believe in you? Like, there's nothing else to believe in but you. And getting things done and being able to execute simple procedures like opening up a bank account, getting documents notarized, filing documents, wherever it needs to go. And just being confident, like, yeah, can't nobody tell me nothing. Like, that's real. That's real. So just get comfortable. And then you're like, okay, I'm ready to do businesses internationally. You're like, yeah, let's do that. All right. No, for real. Like, but just believing in you. And then are you feeding your systems with the proper nutrition, exercises and stuff like that? That has to be a daily, thing you do. That's continually watering yourself. And then are you creating environments to feed into your development that grow you or cause destruction? That's important because I'm telling you, but this is big. I gotta get out of here. So basically, you guys have the master key to wealth. You have the master key to yourself. You the only one with the master key. But what y'all be doing is y'all be giving the key to everybody and their mama. You be giving them copies. I'm like, damn, why are you giving copies of the master key? That's only supposed to be for you. I just be handing them out like it's hotcakes. Yeah, you get a copy. You get a copy to my mom. You get a copy to my mom. You get a copy to my. Like, yo, this is serious. Make sure it's one copy and the original, and that's for you to have. Nobody else, because that's important. So again, there's that key. Why are you fearful? It's either because of objects or situations, future events, or imagined events. Point blank and period. We need to make sure that we keep our software and hardware up to date. How do we do that? By eating the right things, putting the right things in our system, making sure that our thoughts are, squared away. They're not, negative, or made up, right? Um, let me make sure. So that does it for that. Just as a reminder, for those who want to help necessarily with the two forms of land that we have in the Hawaii jurisdiction, definitely reach out. We definitely need help with that. We're getting ready to launch a couple of different things with some folks in the nation to actually help us with that. So we can use as much hands as we need to make sure that we have crops, houses, things of that nature for that particular land mass, right? Because that's important. So if you're interested, you want to know more about it, let us know. And then as a reminder, again, I know y'all like, man, do you ever? No, I don't delete the slide. Because I really want y'all to like make sure y'all look into this. Filling out, we're starting a credit union, trying to start a credit union. But we need the member numbers out. So that's all we're trying to do. So fill out the form, the survey, you go to hawaiidfw.org and you can, figure that thing out. Click on it. And then if there's not any questions, I got like 2 minutes where I have to get out this building. So I appreciate y'all's attention and time to this. Again, I think it's really important to like you have the master key, and you should only have the master key. Nobody else. Not your children, not your mother, not your boyfriend, not your girlfriend. You're the driver. Nobody else. So that's just important. So I'm gonna open up the floor. You good? We can talk offline. Okay. If there's no questions on y'all, I appreciate y'all's attention. That's all. Let me make sure. Anything going on with my computer? Oh, I hear the sirens go off, y'all. Let me go ahead and wrap up, y'all. So no, I just appreciate y'all time. Definitely share this video with somebody who needs to hear things related to fear. It's very important to get that stuff squared away and wrapped up, y'all. So we'll see y'all in 2 weeks from now. And again, if you want to get a bioscan in person, come down to the Yoruba Culture Center. We'll be doing that. We'll be hooking y'all up, getting a scan of everything, right? So on that note, peace, family. What's going on my laptop? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna end this.